Hello there. Welcome to this presentation of the Multi-Entity Control add-on application for Business Central. In this video, I will demonstrate how our app can be used by businesses looking to balance all GL entries by a dimension code, such as an entity, fund, or department. Our application has been designed to keep the configuration as minimal as possible, whilst being simple and straightforward for the users, all the while blending into the Business Central graphical user interface. In this video, we're going to look at the following. Firstly, we're going to go over the configuration and setup of the app. We'll look at the changes made to the general ledger setup, including the field used to define the balancing, the journal template and batch used to create the intercompany balancing entries, the balancing account number used, and any other settings such as the default dimensions for the balancing entries. We're going to look at a general journal entry. We're going to create and post a general journal. This could be a single line, a multiple line entry. We're then going to also look at how we can preview the balancing entries before they're posted, and at what point the automatic balancing of journal entries kicks in. I'll walk you through three featured examples of how our app can be used. The first being purchase documents. I'm going to create and post a multi-entity purchase invoice. Secondly, I'm going to create a payment journal, and I'm going to post a multi-entity payment journal. We'll look at the new bank deposits function and how I can create and post a multi-entity bank deposit. And finally, we're going to review all the general ledger entries created and look at the automatic balancing entries posted to the system. So I've dropped into Business Central. I'm in the Kronos demonstration company. First thing we're going to look at is the configuration and setup of our app. So I'm going to open up the general ledger setup. In here, you'll see that we've got some fields defined for the balancing by dimension application. The first field, balance by, this determines which global dimension we want to use to balance our transactions by. We have a choice of global dimension 1 or 2, and in this instance we're using global dimension 1. For the entries that post to the general ledger, we need to define a journal template name and a journal batch name. These can be set here, and we want to reserve these to be only used by the balancing by dimension function. We also need to define the balancing chart of account number. In this example, I'm going to use 18201. If I open this chart of account up, you can see it's just a balance sheet account. Following dimensions have been defined, and these will be posted when entries are created to this account. That setting is determined here by the defined dimension values on balancing entry flag. We're going to use default dimensions that are set on this chart of account code. You can see my global dimension 1 code is department. We're going to be balancing entries by department code. If we go into a general journal, we're going to use the default batch. I've set up a journal entry here. I'm just going to use the bonds account. It could be any account really. And I've got a balancing account here, which is my cash account. Okay. So I'm going to enter a single line entry. I'm going to set my department code as admin. Over here on the right, I'm going to set my balancing shortcut account as production. Okay, so I want to post to the bonds account with the department admin, and I want to post to my cash account with the shortcut dimension prod. I'm going to go post and balance, say yes, Journal lines were successfully posted. Okay. Now let's have a look at those general ledger entries. Here's the entry, Doc 001. You can see this was posted to the bonds account. There's my cash account, kept the description of the GL account. Prod admin. For my amounts, you'll see that it's balanced by that department code there. Prod nets to 0, admin nets to 0. And on my intercompany balancing lines, I've got my default dimension values included. Okay, large, 10 and Summer. Now let's look at a multi-line entry. I'll put today's date in. It's going to be Doc 2. Why don't we use this as an invoice? Okay, so let's put a vendor in here. We can change the department to be production if we wanted to. Let's put a $1,500 credit in there, and we can fill in any other dimension values we need to. Let's put in our expense account. Let's try some consulting fees. Use a different dimension. Let's go for sales. Let's put our entry in there. So post. We can put some other dimension values in here. Okay. Now, I could post this entry just like this and it'll create those intercompany values for me. Final thing I need to add is an external document number, so I'll put a number in there. Okay, I've got my invoice. This is ready to post. I can get a post and print, post and balance. Do you want to post the journal lines? I'm going to say yes. The journal lines were successfully posted. Okay, now if I go back to my general ledger entries again, I'm going to add another filter in here for my document number. You'll see this was the invoice that I entered. There's the balancing entries for the sales and the production departments. And there's my amounts there. So this sales amount balances that one, and this production one balances this one here. Okay. Now the last thing I wanted to show you on the general journal entry is the following. If I go back into my general journal here, I'll put in another invoice. Let's call this one Doc 003. I'll pick a different vendor this time. We'll go with the West department code, put invoice 2 in here, and put an amount for $4,500. And I'll add some additional dimension codes too. I'm not sure if they're needed on the vendor. Let's change the date as well. Change this to be my GL account. I'll pick this account this time. Put that to the east. We'll make sure it balances. And we'll add in some other dimensions. Okay. I've got my entry. If I wanted to see what would happen before I actually post the entry, I can go up to my post and print and press this generate intercompany lines. What that'll do is it'll add some additional lines to the entry, balancing the above by the department. Okay, so this line here will be posted to the East department and will reverse or balance this entry here to the East department. Likewise, the West one will balance the vendor entry. Okay. Now I can leave these lines on here and do the posting, or I can delete them and do the posting as I showed previously. In here I'll just leave them. So if I go to post and print, post and balance, and say yes, posted my journal entries. Let's have a look at them. I'm going to add change to my document number, and then you'll see document 3. These have all been posted. There's those entries that we saw in the preview and the amounts right there. Our first featured example was a purchase invoice. So let's go ahead and create one of those. I'm just going to go into my purchase invoices, create a new one. It's all going to be standard Business Central. Pick a vendor. Let's use an item, Athens desk. Let's put an invoice number in. Invoice 3. Okay. The department code for the header. This is the vendor department. I'm going to use administration. This is standard Business Central. Do you want to update the lines? I'm going to say yes. It's added the department code on the line for me here. Now I want to change this because I don't want this expense item going to that department. I want it to go to East. Okay, so I'm going to put East in there, and then I'm going to fill in my other dimensions. Okay, let's create another item. It could be the same item. I'll just pick chair to go with my desk. Let's use a different. Let's go with the West department, and I'll just keep those the same. Got 2 lines. Header posting is going to go to this department. 2 different department codes here. I'm going to change the date to be I'm going to go to post, post and balance. Do you want to post the invoice? Yes. And then I get a message saying my global dimension 1 balancing entries have also been posted. So let's go into the general ledger entries. Use my view. External document number 3. Sort it by department. Do it this way. So this is my intercompany balancing entry to offset this expense. Here's the intercompany balancing entry to offset this expense for that item. Okay, here's the desk. Here's the intercompany entry to offset the combination of posting to the vendor and the tax account. In the next example, I'm going to pay one of the invoices that I entered earlier. Okay, so I'm going to go to my vendors. I'll take the first up consultant vendor. I'm just going to pay it using this function. So So you can see here, this was my entry, invoice 2, that I put in a moment ago. I'm going to go to process, create payment, change the date, payment 1, keep to my checking bank. So the entry to the vendor is going to be posted to the West department. The entry to the bank is going to go to the East department. So I'm going to go to post and balance, say yes. Journal lines were successfully posted. Let's go back to my main menu. Let's take a look at that general ledger entry. Here it is, payment 1. This is the payment to the vendor, went to the West department. Bank entry went to the East department. There's my balancing entry for the vendor and my balancing entry to the bank. In this last example, let's look at the bank deposits. Got my bank deposits, create a new one. Let's select my checking bank. Let's make up a deposit amount of $500. It's already added in the department code admin over here for me. I'm going to change the date. Select vendor, put my vendor in. The credit amount of 500, bring the difference back down to 0. So look at my dimensions for the line. Let's change this to be West. Close it. So we've got the vendor line going to the West and the bank going to the admin department. I'm just going to go post and balance. Yes. My balancing entries have also been posted. Let's take a look at those general ledger entries. So here's the bank posting, $500 to the admin department. That's the balancing entry to counteract that. And then the entry to the vendor for the refund for $500 gone to the West department, and the intercompany balancing entry to support it. So let's take a look at all the general ledger entries we've posted in this demonstration. I'm going to open up the general ledger entries and I'm going to use my custom filter, which is basically filtering on everything posted today. Let me resort those by the entry number. So firstly, we put in this document here, which is a journal entry. You can see the intercompany balancing entries here. Then we put in a multiple line entry from a general journal. This time we used the document type of invoice. Third one was an example of how we generated the preview of the entry in a general journal. That was document number 3. The next entry was a purchase invoice, which are these lines here, and you can see the intercompany balancing entries in here that were generated automatically. Then we went on to pay document 3, this one here, First Up Consultants, and you can see the intercompany entries being created on the payment. And finally, we created a refund for $500. Different department codes again, and the balancing entries were also generated for us automatically. I want to thank you for watching this demonstration of our Moldy Entity Control app for Business Central. The app is now available for download via Microsoft App Store. For more information, you can also visit our website, https://aptitude.solutions/multi-entity-control, or you can contact us directly at 604-612-4928 or email us at pfernandez@aptitudesolutions. Thanks again. Bye bye.